First of all, let me express again my belief that Julian Assange is a journalist. The intelligence agencies can repeat mindlessly that WikiLeaks is a Russian front and that Assange is a Russian asset, but that does not make it true. In fact, the more they say it, the more likely it is to be untrue. It's what they would like it to be. It's funny how liberals, including many in the mainstream media, loved Julian Assange when he was exposing the deep secrets of the Bush administration, because they viewed that in partisan terms. I'm having a hard time understanding what Assange's potential crime is. He obtained, through some source, classified information, and he published it. So did the New York Times. So has the Washington Post. So has the Wall Street Journal. That's what journalists do. That is not a crime. In the Pentagon Papers case, the New York Times versus the United States of America, the court ruled very clearly that that is a legitimate role of the Fifth Estate. So the real crime by Assange is that he is exposing the deep corruption of the two-party duopoly. He is laying bare the stark crimes of the Obamas and the Clintons and the Bushes, and for that he must be destroyed. Hillary Clinton actually proposed hitting him with a U.S. drone. Secretary of State John Kerry went to the British government and actually tried to convince them to rescind their diplomatic recognition of Ecuador for 24 hours so that armed thugs could storm the Ecuadorian embassy in London and seize Assange. I know that some, like Jeff Sessions, the hapless moron who's our current Attorney General, a man who told the Senate that he can't find any crimes to investigate Hillary Clinton for, and Richard Pompeo, Mike Pompeo, I guess it is, the CIA director, keep claiming endlessly that Assange has violated the law. What law would that be? I am hopeful that the president will issue a blanket pardon for Assange to put an end to this idiocy. I understand that Assange is living under very difficult circumstances. No one should get the impression that the Ecuadorian embassy in London is opulent or comfortable. He is essentially sentenced to a small living space that he cannot leave for fear of being kidnapped and extradited to face phony charges. Now, there were earlier on completely trumped up charges of sexual misconduct against him in Sweden, I think it was. This is a classic British intelligence honey trap. It's so transparently false that even they had to drop these bogus charges. Assange is a truth teller. That's his only crime, and his crime is against the globalists who would seek to cover up their corruption. In the question of Seth Rich, several things are true. One, it is very clear that Seth Rich was murdered for political purposes. This was not a random burglary. Seth Rich's parents initially expressed a view that his watch, his wallet, his jewelry, his money was all intact. So much for the robbery motive. And early on, they expressed an interest in knowing who his killer was. Then, suddenly, they fired the private detective that they had retained to look into his murder, and they began to become represented by a crisis management spokesperson whose other client is the Democratic National Committee. In a stunning interview, Assange was asked directly whether Seth Rich was his source, whether it was Seth Rich who passed the Democratic National Committee emails on to WikiLeaks, who subsequently published them to great effect and to the detriment of Hillary Clinton. Read that interview very carefully. He never denies that Rich is his source. What he says several times is, indeed, our sources take their lives into their hands. They run substantial risk. And then at the end of the interview, he announces a $25,000 reward to anyone who can provide information that leads to the apprehension of Rich's killer. I think it is abundantly clear that Seth Rich was not only a WikiLeaks source, but he was murdered because of it. In her stunning book, Donna Brazile, not exactly a right-winger, certainly no member of the John Birch Society, admits that she was scared to death after the murder of Rich, that she was worried about being surveilled, and perhaps that she was next. What more do we need to know?